Okay guys, I know about this whole situation with Derpy and how it's getting a lot of people down, so I just wanted to say something about it if anyone's listening. And that something is, calm down. Just take a deep breath and try to look at this objectively. I really don't think that this situation is as bad as you're making it out to be. First of all, let's recap what happened. Hasbro took down the episode The Last Roundup from iTunes and put it back up a few weeks or so later, removing Derpy's name, dubbing over her lines in a different voice, and making her eyes significantly less derped. Now, I realize how this is rather disappointing to many of you, but the way some of you are going on, saying things, Derpy is dead, rest in peace, Derpy, you're acting as though Hasbro took Derpy out of the episode entirely, took down every episode that Derpy was in on iTunes ever, and put them all back up with her entirely removed. But Derpy is still there, she always has been, and we have confirmed from one of the animators, Krios, that she will continue to appear in future episodes, derp eyes and all. Now, as to her changes in the last roundup, I'll start with the name. A lot of you are disappointed that her name is not mentioned in the episode, and you're pointing fingers, blaming everyone you can think of, saying that they did it because you found it offensive. I acknowledge that it could be that, but more likely in my eyes it's a copyright thing. According to Know Your Meme, the first known instance of the word derp comes from the 1998 film Basketball by South Park creators Trey Parker and Matt Stone. During a scene where they are caught smelling underwear taken from a woman's private drawer, Matt runs out of the room and says derp. This word has been used a number of times in South Park itself since then, and this is undoubtedly how the term has become popular on the internet. It's a common enough word now, sure, but nonetheless, Trey and Matt could accurately claim credit for it. So in my eyes, it's far more possible that they removed her name because Hasbro and DHX Media Vancouver didn't want to get into a bunch of convoluted copyright issues with South Park Studios. I've also noticed a lot of you lamenting that she officially has no name anymore. Frankly, I don't see why you find that so offensive. My personal theory is that if they had to change her, like if they were forced to, they left her name out on purpose so that she could still be Derpy to the fandom instead of giving her a different name entirely. Krios has stated that they still call her Derpy around the office, so that's good enough for me that she's still Derpy. Now about her voice. I really don't see anything wrong with her new voice, apart from the fact that they delivered and dubbed her and Dash's lines rather shoddily, but that's forgivable if they were on a time crunch. Really, I don't see any good reason for people to complain that her voice changed. I mean, think about this. How many of you would honestly be as averse to it if that was the voice she had to begin with? I think the whole thing about her voice is just resistance to change. I understand that feeling. I've had it Celestia knows how many times before, but it's irrational. And I know it's irrational. Change is part of life, and really in the whole scheme of things, none of this is that big of a deal. Finally, we come to the matter of her eyes. Honestly, I don't really have an explanation for this, but name-calling and finger-pointing won't make Derpy any better, and it'll just make the situation in the fandom worse. Besides, her eyes didn't totally underp, so if Hasbro did this just to cover their asses about something, as it were, they're still showing us acknowledgement by keeping as much of Derpy in there as possible. Honestly, getting offended and angry at Hasbro or DHX or whoever when they're still trying to acknowledge us the best they can is just biting the hand that feeds us. It might not even be our fault. It could have been someone at Apple who made DHX make the change. It could have been someone higher up at Hasbro. Krios even said that Yamino, an artist who does not like the original portrayal of Derpy at all and was exceptionally vocal about it, had, quote, nothing to do with the sudden change, unquote. If it wasn't her fault, what makes anyone think that it's the fault of anyone in the fandom? For whatever reason they made the change, I reiterate that we have no need to be as indignant as we currently are about this matter. I've heard people say that we should boycott Hasbro until they change her back. That's not only extremely petty, that would be completely ineffective as well. Hasbro has Atari, Battleship, Cranium, Bop It, Transformers, Tinker Toys, Play-Doh, Mr. Potato Head, Spirograph, Monopoly, plenty of sources of revenue. If a handful of older individuals who are not even in the target demographic for the toy line stop paying Hasbro, they're not going to care. Another thing I've noticed that, quite frankly, rather annoys me, and I've seen this from individuals I highly respect like Alex S., is when people say that removing Derpy is offensive because it's like refusing to acknowledge that the disabled exist. Okay, guys, in case you forgot, Derpy was never supposed to be disabled. Even in the original cut of the scene, she wasn't acting retarded, she was acting cartoonishly goofy. Then some people decided to take this way too seriously, began to complain, and that's really what led to this whole thing. Continuing to dwell on the so-called fact that she's apparently disabled will, again, only make things worse for everyone involved. Now let's look at this whole thing from another perspective. Let's see what they left in. They left in the character. They left in all her lines and actions unchanged. They even left in her googly eyes, albeit to a lesser degree. But frankly, I don't see why that's such a problem since she's been seen with normal eyes on a number of occasions. The HX isn't trying to deny us. They've still kept her in there. Derpy Hooves is alive. She merely speaks with a different voice and has a bit more control over her eyes. She'll still find her way into silly situations, popping up Waldo-esque in the background with her googly eyes the way she always has. And frankly, I don't see what's so horrifying about that. Love and tolerate, my bronies, and may the derp be with you.